Okay. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, members of the public and members, and welcome to this evening's Development Management Committee meeting. We'll start with item 1 on the agenda, which is apologies for absence, and I don't believe we have any. We have a full team tonight. Declarations of interest, members. Councillor Livings.
I'd like to declare personal interest in item 8, please.
And you'll be withdrawing, yes?
Yeah, I'll be withdrawing.
Thank you. Councillor Souter.
Thank you, Chair. Non-pecuniary interest on item 9 as the county councillor.
Thank you. Councillor Garnett.
Item 7 as the county councillor, non-prejudicial, and item 8 a prejudicial issue, so I'll be dropping out of the meeting.
Thank you. Councillor Hardware.
Item 9, I'm one of the ward councillors.
Thank you very much. Okay, moving on then. Item 3, minutes to the last meeting. Are they agreed?
Agreed.
Thank you. Any matters arising from them? No. Excellent. There are no written questions. So the procedure that we'll be using this evening to determine the applications is, first of all, the planning officer will present the application. Once the presentation's done, there will be a maximum of 3 speakers for and a maximum of 3 speakers against the application. They'll be limited to either having submitted a statement in writing of 450 words or 3 minutes, whichever one they've decided to choose. Following that, comments will then be invited from the applicant or agent, who will be given again 3 minutes to speak. We will then move to councillors' questions and clarifications. Following that, councillors will move to a debate and make a decision on each of the applications. So if we move then to agenda item 7, which is Nettleswell Hall, Park Lane, Harlow. Gavin, I believe you're presenting this one.
Yes, thank you, councillor. I'll share my screen. Make a start. Okay. Right. Okay. The application at Nettleswell Hall, Park Lane. The proposal is for the erection of 20 dwellings, 4 flats, including 4 flats through conversion. Before I start, I'll bring members' attention to the supplementary agenda, which indicates a response from Waste Services, a further response from our Place Services design team, and some subsequent changes with regard. So also at this point out on the agenda that conditions 14 and 19 are repeated. So please can condition 14 be deleted from consideration, because obviously it's a duplication. So coming to the application site, as you can see on the screen, the application is for Paradise. This shows the existing situation. Here you've got Nettleswell Hall and a large extension to it, which created the former Paradise nightclub with associated grounds. This site falls within the conservation area. Ambury Court, Nettleswell Orchard all fall outside of the conservation area. The conservation area boundary comes to about this location on Park Lane and this part on Nettleswell Orchard. So Nettleswell Court is outside. The important thing to note on this site and for consideration is the change in levels across the site. So there is a change in levels from Ambury Court to Nettleswell Orchard, and then it rises up to Town Park. And also equally, the road rises up Park Lane towards Ambury Court and Park Court on Park Lane, that shows in the aerial photo. And from this, you'll note there is also adjoining the site is the 2-storey building, which is a nursery. And you'll see from the aerial photo there are quite an extensive amount of trees on the existing site. A lot of these are largely self-seeded and are of poor quality. I'll come to that in more detail in due course. So in terms of the proposal, there are 3 elements to this proposal, and that reflects the change in levels across the site. And there are these units 1 to 8, which front Nettleswell Orchard, which are a mix of detached and semi-detached properties. 9 to 16 are 8 terrace units, which back onto Park Lane. And then the third element is the conversion of Nesswell Hall here with its own amenity space and parking, associated parking. So these units get their parking here. These units essentially get their parking here. And I'll come to that in due course. So I'll go through the design. I should note here that all the designs have these panels. These are feature panels, and they're not designed to be. The applicant has confirmed they are not to be timber. There is a detailed condition, so the quality of the materials that will be used here is absolutely crucial to the success of this scheme, and that is set out within condition 5. So these are the detached houses, the semi-detached houses, which have all the units have very similar language in terms of their appearance, in terms of the scale of the windows and the type and the materials being used throughout the site. So these are the terrace elevations and floor plans. You can see how those work. Important to identify Nesswell Hall, which is being converted into 4 flats, and this shows the arrangement and the reinstatement, particularly of the rear elevation following the demolition that is to take place. So I'll take you through sections are quite interesting, quite useful here, and that these do show. And the first section I want to show you is section one, which shows the changing levels across the site, and then section 2 shows the Nesswell Orchard. So section 1, as I said, this is Nesswell Hall, and beyond it is the terrace units, and then you can see it steps down, and you've got the properties on Nesswell Orchard. This is Nesswell Orchard, and you can see the ground raises up here. Section 2 is the view from Nesswell Orchard. You'll note there is a change in levels of the slope along Nesswell Orchard, and you can see beyond here that's the terraced units that go but back onto Park Lane, and that is Nesswell Hall. So important to take into account the appeal scheme, and I'll this identifies the scheme. This scheme was for 30 units, and the inspector rejected it because of the impact on the character of the conservation area, impact on the amenity of future occupiers by reason of the size of the gardens and the particular relationships here, because there is this change in levels. And you will note the site plan does have this extensive area of parking, which is dominated and has no frontage to Nesswell Orchard, which is an important consideration in terms of the character. So in terms of the context, I'll go through some images. I'll start here at Nesswell Court, looking towards the site in this location, and I'll take members down Nesswell Orchard, and then from further in the conservation area up Park Lane, finishing up looking back towards the site. So as I said, this is the nursery. This is looking from Nesswell Court, looking towards the site. So we're up high at the moment, and then I was standing just here, looking this way. You can see there is this change in levels here. This is the access to the site. And looking back along Nesswell Orchard, you'll note the change in levels. The fact Nesswell Orchard is in a dip, essentially. So the land rises up beyond up to the left and up to the right. So looking back, Nesswell Orchard, which looks up the slope, and as I said, there is this slope along Nesswell Orchard as well. So as I said, this last image was taken looking this way. This shows the junction of Nesswell Orchard to Park Lane and shows the site. The terrace units will be essentially behind here, and you see the tower at Nesswell Court. So essentially the development will be in here. And as I said, there will be quite a considerable amount of tree loss, but lots of trees will be retained as part of the proposal. So starting further deeper in the conservation area, the character of the conservation area has properties that are set a variety of different distances away, And in particular, you can say these series of cottages, they're set right up to the front. And it is a feature that there is an element of setting to the conservation area with these properties. So I'll just take you along Park Lane, going towards the site. You'll see, obviously, note the extensive trees and landscaping. And as we move further up, we get up to the junction where I showed you before was here. I was looking from this, we were looking across here. This is the Lee Manning Centre, which is a single-storey building. So it shows that junction in a bit more detail. And again, the site is essentially here in this location. This is Neswell Orchard here. So you can see this change in levels. And this is looking back. This is the Lee Manning Centre, which is single-storey, but also is elevated. You will also note that Park Lane is at a lower level than where the site is. So this rises up here, and that's just looking back towards the site. This is Amberley Court. You can see this is part of the single-storey extensions to the existing Neswell Hall, which will be demolished. And you can see there's quite a slope down into the conservation area. The conservation area boundary is probably about in this again just beyond this car. So coming back to what you can actually see of the site at the moment, this image is looking from Town Park to the site. You can just see in the centre now the existing Neswell Hall here. So you can see that you can appreciate the change in levels, and as you can see, you can't see very much essentially. Neswell Hall itself is it's been identified as a non-designated heritage asset, so its retention is important. This shows what the current state of the building is, and this shows the building in 1955, the home of Harlow Urban District Council. So it's particularly important that this building is retained. So in terms of the determining issues, I just want to cover the impact on the character and appearance of the conservation area and Neswell Hall, the impact on access, parking and highway safety, and then to conclude in terms of the balance that members should take into account in terms of the benefits of the scheme. So the site is a vacant site and has quite a number of self-seeded trees and hedges and shrubs. There is no principal objection to the redevelopment of the site. This site will be redeveloped and there will be a scheme that will work. We can obviously consider this. And in terms of the conservation area, the scheme must not harm the character of the conservation area or Neswell Hall itself. It is considered that the proposal gets that right balance by setting the buildings on Neswell Orchard so they provide that element of frontage and allow sufficient landscaping to be introduced in this area particularly, and also you can see the number of trees that will be retained as part of the proposal. So landscaping is particularly important and can be achieved with the level and density of this scheme. So in terms of the three elements of the proposal, I'll deal with those each in terms of their impact. As I said, Neswell Orchard will provide a frontage, and that's similar to the properties in the conservation area. Views will be limited due to the change in levels and the landscaping, so that impact is considered to be acceptable. The terrace is on a hill and is elevated. It's considered that the retention of the boundary treatment and the fact they're set back will mean that the views will be limited due to the change in levels. So that impact is considered to be acceptable. In terms of Neswell Hall, it's going to be the modern extensions to the building, which extend all the way to this boundary here, which we saw in terms of the photo from Amberley Court, will be demolished, and that is a significant benefit of this scheme, that this historic building can be retained. So on that basis, the harm is considered to be less than substantial, and there are considered to be significant benefits to outweigh that harm in terms of strict conservation policy, in terms of conservation. So hence why we consider it to be exceptional in terms of conservation terms. Coming to the second issue, which is the impact of highways and parking. The proposal involves, these units are some of the larger units, and each of them have 2 spaces per dwelling. So you can see that the parking provision here would be acceptable. The smaller houses here and the flat conversion have their own separate parking areas, and they are quite considerable a distance away from Nestlewell Orchard and the upper hill. So overall, it's considered that the 29 spaces, which is 71% of the required 41 spaces, is considered acceptable as it's near the town centre and is the correct provision. And as I mentioned earlier, the appeal scheme, one of the problems with the appeal scheme was the amount of hard surfacing. And to achieve a successful scheme here, you have to get the right balance between built developments and hard surfacing. So here you can see the plan is not dominated by car parking or hard surfacing. So that means that landscaping can be achieved and can ensure that the houses sit within the landscape, which is an important characteristic of the conservation area. The third issue I wanted to come back to is the in terms of the balance and the benefits of the scheme. Members should have regard to the fact this is an existing brownfield site, and this is bringing forward needed housing in an efficient use of space. There would also be a delivery of 6 affordable units, so this scheme is policy compliant in terms of affordable housing. And also this scheme provides the significant benefits of the retention and reinstatement in Nestlewell Hall. So you will see from the report, the overall recommendation is grant subject to a legal agreement to secure an off-site contribution towards biodiversity and also the delivery of 60 affordable units. Thank you, members.
Lovely, thank you. Okay, we have only one speaker on this, which is Mr. Cotton, the agent.
Thank you very much, Chairman. Can you hear me?
We can, yes. You'll have 3 minutes.
Excellent. Marvellous. Thank you very much. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for giving me the time to speak at tonight's meeting. I'm Mark Cotton, Director of Architecture and Design Services based at Palmer Mill here in Harlow, and I'm speaking as agent for this application, which is for the redevelopment of the old Paradise Lodge social club site, also known as Nestlewell Hall. And it's the result of almost 8 months of discussions and design development with your planning officers and Essex Place Services. The scheme seeks to retain and refurbish the locally listed Nestlewell Hall whilst developing a further 16 houses within the wider site, enhancing a historic building with a particular significance to Harlow, whilst bringing a derelict site in the heart of our town back into viable use. No development is without consequence, and we believe that it is right for us to address and allay some of the concerns that have been raised during the consultation process, which broadly fall into 3 areas: parking, environmental impact, and the impact on the historic building. The council's adopted parking standards require 2.25 spaces per dwelling unless the site's location is such that there can be a reduction due to the proximity of local services and transport links. This site is within walking distance of the town centre and the station, and after discussions with planning officers about the visual impact of the proposed parking, a reduced provision is proposed, with the larger homes having 2 parking spaces and the smaller dwellings having a reduced provision of 1 space per dwelling with 1 shared visitor space. Residential parking in central locations should be reduced to encourage the use of other greener methods of transport, and we believe that the level of parking being proposed here is appropriate to the location. The existing site is extremely overgrown with a number of low quality self-seeded trees. Our various surveys found the site to be of low ecological value, but identified a number of trees worthy of retention, all of which were approaching the end of their realistic lifespan. Where we've been able to retain these important trees we have, and where that's not proven possible, they're to be replaced with younger versions of the same species to maintain the diversity of the site. Further environmental improvements such as bee bricks and bat boxes will be incorporated within the final development, and the proposed planting themes are all aimed at improving the habitats for pollinators, birds and small mammals, all of which will have a knock-on beneficial impact for the town park. Finally, Nestlewell Hall is in a very poor state, with poorly conceived extensions and alterations making it impossible to repurpose the building as it stands, threatening its long-term existence and making it a target for vandals and general antisocial behaviour. This scheme will leave the refurbished hall as the jewel in the crown of the site, repurposed as self-contained flats and facing a secure long-term future. All of the dwellings on the site will meet Harlow space standards and standard M4(2) of the building regulations, with an agreed percentage to be built to the higher M4(3) standard as fully accessible dwellings. They will also achieve the required improvement on energy consumption and CO2 emissions. The proposal will result in 6 new affordable homes, 14 market dwellings, the improvement of a derelict site adjacent to one of our town's greatest assets, and the restoration of a locally significant historic building. And we believe that it's worthy of your support. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Cotton. Okay, members, any questions? Councillor Souter and then Councillor Garnett.
Thank you, Chair. I'm a little bit concerned that the timber cladding on the outside of the buildings, it's not in character to the other houses which are all brick built. Is there anything we can do to arrange that they are brick built instead of timber on the front?
I'm sure there is. Gavin?
As I said in my initial comments, the panels shown on the building are not going to be timber. The detailing of those panels, I don't know how we've ended up with this comment saying that they would be timber. They are going to be controlled anyway by condition. So all the materials will be subject to agreement, because one of the key things with regard to this scheme is to ensure that the materials are of a high quality. And that is why we've got a condition requiring all those details to be submitted and approved prior to commencement.
Thank you.
Councillor Garnett?
Thank you, Chair. Netswell Hall, which I've been sold on the development because of Netswell Hall, but how protected is that? I am concerned if we don't get the right builders to do the works in the Netswell Hall, it might end up as more of a modern building, or at least not quality work. Is there anything we can do to protect that, or stipulate a condition about the builders concerned in that? They are historic developers.
The applicant, the permission is being granted on the basis that the hall will be converted. Yeah, so that is the basis for the permission. If they subsequently do something different, they will have to seek further approval for that. We can only go on what we have at the moment from the applicant, in that the building can be converted, is suitable for conversion, and will be retained. And as I said in my presentation, one of the key things for the granting of permission is the fact that the building is being retained. If it isn't retained, then the basis for the permission then disappears. Yeah, so it is important, it's fundamental to the scheme.
Can I just come back on that, Chair, please?
Okay, and Councillor Garnett?
Yeah, perhaps if we sort of talk about windows, at the moment it's covered in ivy and it looks in a terrible state, which probably means that the windows need replacing. Now, what we don't want is plastic windows going in there when they should be the original windows, which is oak or something, whatever it is. How can we make sure that happens?
Probably the solution here is to suggest a further condition requesting details of the windows and the specific works required to convert Netswell Hall, so that we then have further control and ensure those details of quality and the building can be retained.
Yeah. Can I propose that then, Chair? Thank you.
You can propose it when we get to the debate, absolutely.
Yeah, okay.
Any more questions, members? No debate then. Who wants to open up? Do you want to open up? Councillor Garnett, you've got your hand up first, I think.
All right, then if I propose that first, that there is a condition to protect the joinery, exterior joinery, of however you like to phrase it.
Of Netswell Hall.
So it's protected from sort of plastic has-beens.
Keep it in character with.
Yeah, keep it in character, because there's no point in protecting a listed building if we then go and ruin it. I assume the inside, there's probably a little bit of control. We can control. The only other thing is,
Before you go any further, Councillor Garnett, is that seconded?
Yes, Chair.
Excellent. Okay.
So I'm just sort of, I struggled with this for a long time, and I still am a little bit. I looked at the appeal dismissed for the following reason: development would have the character would harm the character and appearance of the area, so on and so forth. I understand it's reduced from 30 buildings, houses down to 20. I can't see that that's altering the harm it's going to cause to that area of the town park. I'm concerned about that. I know the trees, you know, with an arboriculture officer, trees can be no good when he wants them to be no good, and they're good when you know, perhaps developers want to knock them down. But I suppose the only other comment I would make, and it's a general comment, and we as a committee, we try to make a decision, and when I look at the drawings at the back of the application, they're computer generated. There's no detail on those, you know, proposed elevations detached.
No.
We should have. I think, you know, no disrespect to Mr. Cotton, but you know, you should give us something to look at that we can admire or not admire, as the case may be. And I can't make anything from those square boxes with a bit of a pitched roof. They look like they've come out of Legoland. And so they may or may not fit in with the area. Anyway, I'll end up there. Thank you.
Councillor Clark.
Yes, I struggled with this as well. I usually spend my whole time defending every tree in sight, and that's my major problem here. But on the other hand, as the objectors have commented, it is heavily overgrown. The trees themselves are of, I do agree, are of poor quality on the whole. They are self-seeded. And it's a sort of paradise in a sense for fly tippers. And it's terrible to judge an application in a sense on fly tipping, but the whole site lends itself to this. It's quite oppressive, as the inspector commented on the trees along there. And it is very concerning that the fly tippers have taken over, and only a brick wall of about 6 foot high would actually solve that, and that would defeat the object of the exercise. So I've moved towards the more positive approach. There is a reduction by a third. There's a reduction in height. There's an increasing green spaced area, the verdant area, as they keep calling it, and retention of the heritage asset. And I agree with Mike, it has to be preserved. And particularly the affordable housing. I was pleased to see the 30% affordable housing, which I do hope, I know they haven't answered this question yet, but I hope it's spread across and dispersed and not located in one site. So on balance, Chair, in spite of its relationship to the town park and the loss of trees, I think on balance, this will be an improvement to certainly what is in existence at the moment.
Thank you, Councillor Clark. Councillor Holcote, and then Councillor Danvers.
I've got quite a long history with this site because it used to be Gilby Social Club, and a friend of mine worked there. So we were constantly in that building, and we had a table tennis building behind. It was a fantastic site. We used to have a lot of social stuff going on there, especially in the summer months. And it was quite a tragedy when they left it, and it wasn't taken over by anybody for a long time, and it was so neglected. I mean, the conifer trees at the front in what was in the old car park, they're interfering with the path, the footpath that goes alongside that site. So although I'm not happy with the terrace, I think they look very crowded. They look a bit barracksy to me, but if brickwork is put on it, it'll improve it. And I agree with what Councillor Clark and Garnett have said about the situation that we've got now. But considering what it's been like in the past and how it's been neglected and overgrown, this has got to be an improvement on that. So I will be voting for it, but there are things that I'm not happy with. But at the moment, I think that we need to pass this so that we haven't got that site looking at it and people parking along there to go to the train station. So that's my comments on this side. Look, Chair, thank you.
Councillor Colcoop, Councillor Danvers.
This is a classic case, Chair, of a developer allowing what was once a very beautiful site being allowed to deteriorate by stealth over many, many years. The tarmacking of the lower area was destructive to so many very beautiful trees at the time that have since died or have actually, as it's been said, in poor condition. So many residents in the town park and Netswell and Netswell Orchard have contacted me and complained over the years about the dreadful appearance of this site. And it is unfortunate that the site will actually be lost as open land, but it is now inevitable. The design, as Mike Garnett said, is very pedestrian, to say the least. It really would deserve nice quality buildings there. The agent has played up quite a few of the points, and I hope that the developers will actually keep to their word. I have my doubts, but let's just hope that what has been said will be true.
Thank you, Councillor Danvers. Anybody else? Okay, in that case, we'll move to the vote. So just to be clear what we're voting on. So pages 26 to 32, the 106 agreement, which provides for 6 units and £2,040 towards biodiversity. Recommendations 1 to 20 with the removal of duplicate condition 14, the extra condition on Netswell Hall, informative 1, and then recommendation 21 in your supplementary papers. All those in favour, please. I believe that's unanimous. Yep. Thank you very much, members. Anybody that came specifically for that item, you're welcome to leave. You're welcome to stay if you want to stay for the rest of the items as well. So moving to 47 Hart Road, have we lost the 2 councillors? Looks like we have.
I'm just doing it now, Chair.
Okay, we'll see you shortly.
They're now in the waiting room, Chair.
Lovely, thank you. So can we, Jade, can you present 47 Hart Road, please?
Of course. Can you see my screen okay?
Yep. Okay.
This proposal relates to application reference ending 2000611 at 47 Hart Road for the proposed demolition of the existing bungalow and the erection of a replacement dwelling. The application site is located on Hart Road, which is residential in nature, comprising a range of housing types of varied design. The application site is not located within a conservation area and is not a listed building. To the west of the application site is number 45. And to the east is number 49, which is a 2-storey dwelling. The application site comprises a dilapidated bungalow with landscaping and 1 parking space to its front with a garden to its rear. This slide shows its elevations as existing. This slide shows the existing floor plan and the existing dimensions of the dwelling and its distances to the side walls of the neighbouring properties. A comparison table between the existing and proposed measurements will be shown in a moment. This shows the elevations of the proposed dwelling, which would be 2 stories. This shows the proposed floor plans. The proposed dwelling would accommodate 4 bedrooms, as can be seen here. The ground floor element would project beyond the first floor by approximately 1.3 metres. Amended plans received reduced the depth of the proposed dwelling by 1 metre at both levels to its current depth. This slide shows the differences in dimensions between the existing and proposed dwelling. The proposed dwelling would be 0.3 metres greater in width, metre greater in depth, at ground floor and would be 1.8 metres higher than the existing. Whilst this would create a two-storey dwelling, it is not considered that the proposed dimensions would be significantly different to the existing dwelling. In addition, the proposed dimensions would be similar to other two-storey properties located within the immediate vicinity, and it is not therefore considered it would be out of keeping with the character and appearance of the area. The proposed dwelling would be positioned further from the side wall of number 45, but would be 0.7 metres closer to number 49. It would project 0.2 metres past number 45 at single storey level and 3.7 metres past number 49 at single storey level and 2.4 metres past number 49 at two-storey level. It will be set apart from both neighbouring properties. This plan shows that the proposal would intrude the 45-degree line when taken from the side of number 49. However, it would not intrude the 45-degree line when taken from the midpoint of the closest habitable window, as is required by the Harlow Design Guide SPD. The proposal is therefore considered to be in compliance with the design guide in this regard. This shows the existing and proposed street scene. It's noted that the proposed dwelling would be higher than number 45, which would not follow the natural slope of the road. However, other two-storey dwellings are positioned next to bungalows within the street scene, and this is therefore considered to be acceptable. Now we move on to the photographs. This is the site from the front as existing. Got number 45 on the left, the side box dormer, and then to the right is number 49. This shows the rear of the site. It has relatively deep garden. This is looking at the relationship between the application dwelling and number 49. As you can see, because of the slope in the road, number 49 is set at a slightly lower land level and is set off the boundary from the application dwelling. This shows the existing and proposed distances between the application dwelling and number 49. So at the moment, the distance is 3.5 metres and the proposed distance is closer at 2.8 metres. This shows the side windows of number 49. A daylight and sunlight assessment has been submitted, which notes that the two side kitchen windows, numbered 6 and 7 here, would receive less daylight compared to the existing circumstance. However, all habitable windows on both neighbouring properties would pass the building research establishment standards in relation to daylight. In relation to sunlight, the daylight and sunlight assessment concludes that all windows with a requirement for sunlight on the neighbouring properties pass the BRE test mentioned, except for the side kitchen window, which is number 6 at 49 Hart Road. However, the BRE standards acknowledge that where existing buildings sit close to the common boundary, as with 49 Hart Road, a higher degree of obstruction may be unavoidable. The BRE standards explain that where existing neighbouring buildings sit close to the boundary, alternative sunlight targets may be applied, and the side kitchen window surpasses the alternative sunlight targets. So the daylight and sunlight assessment concludes that all neighbouring windows serving habitable rooms pass the relevant BRE standards for daylight and sunlight, and the overshadowing to gardens and open spaces test is met. It should be noted that the daylight and sunlight assessment was based on the originally submitted plans, and amended plans have subsequently been received, which reduce the depth of the proposed dwelling, which would improve the results. This shows the relationship between number 45 and the application dwelling. So the main or only window on the side of number 45 is this window here on the side of the box dormer, and the proposed distance from this window will actually be greater than it is as existing, and the outlook from that window won't be significantly different to existing, looking at the side of the dwelling and the roof. This is all three together for context. These are examples of other two-storey dwellings positioned next to bungalows. Number 43 was a bungalow, and the first floor was granted in 2014. And then we've got an example here of bungalow next door to 2 two-storey properties, and number 39 was granted an additional floor in 2004. And here is the row in context. And this is the dwelling opposite the site, number 38, which appears to be built as existing. So in conclusion, the proposed development is not considered to result in adverse impacts to the character and appearance of the area and would not result in detrimental impacts to neighbouring amenity, parking in the highway, refuse collection or trees subject to conditions. The proposed development is therefore considered to be in compliance with the relevant policies within the Harlow Local Development Plan and is acceptable in principle and is recommended for approval accordingly. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Jade. Okay, lovely. Questions, members?
Sorry, we have some speakers. Sorry,
Oh, apologies.
Speakers.
Yes. Apologies. Yes, we have 2 speakers for the application and the agent. So, Mr. Crook, Stuart Crook, are you here?
I am, yes.
You'll have 3 minutes, Mr. Crook.
Thank you very much. Good evening. Excuse me. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My house in Hart Road was built 21 years ago, and we have lived in it ever since. So I was very pleased when our daughter and son-in-law decided to buy the bungalow at number 47, as it would be great comfort to have them close. Sadly, the bungalow could not be refurbished and a new house has been put forward. The new house has a downstairs shower room and toilet. There will be a room that could convert to a bedroom. My wife and I are now approaching our 80s, and the new house would accommodate us should the need ever arise. So I really hope that you will look upon this favourably. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Our next speaker is Mr. Mancher, Paul Mancher. I think, yes, you want to turn your camera on, Mr. Mancher?
Hold on.
I'm just looking for it.
Joys of Zoom. We've become experts over the last few months.
Good man. Good evening.
Good evening.
I live 100 metres away at number 7 Wildwood Close, and as a neighbour, I support the proposed demolition of the existing bungalow at 47 Hart Road, Old Harlow, and for the erection of a replacement dwelling. I daily walk my dog past the existing property, which is an eyesore. It has been for many years and is in poor condition and financially not viable for renovation. The proposed replacement new property will be in keeping with other houses in Hart Road and will not be the largest by far. I therefore would be extremely pleased if the Planning Management Committee were to grant approval of this application.
Thank you, Mr. Mancher. And last speaker on this item is Mr. Harton, the applicant.
I think I'm unmuted. I think I've just got to find the camera.
Right. Yeah.
Tony. Oh God.
Yeah, we can hear you. It's all good.
You can hear me at least.
Yeah, and we can see you, so it's all
Oh,
good.
you can see me as well. Okay. Good evening, everyone. I'm probably going to repeat a lot of what Jade has already said, actually. But essentially, my wife and I bought Hart Road to move to the area to be near our in-laws who are approaching their 80s. The original intention was to refurbish the bungalow and make it our home. As you know, you've heard, it's already in an uninhabitable state. We were disappointed when we were advised by our architect and builder that the construction is substandard. The walls are only single brick and therefore couldn't support a second story. In addition to that, would be unlikely we could refinance or sell it in the future, as it would be essentially unmortgageable. So we are therefore seeking to demolish it, as has already been explained, and replace it with a 2-story with off-road parking for 3 cars. Now, we've noted the objection from our neighbour number 49, and as Jade has already said, we had a right-to-light survey carried out, which showed that the house at that stage was compliant. I'm very conscious of their concerns and have adhered to requests from planning on 2 occasions to remove the front projection and to reduce it by at least 1 metre at the rear. The distance between the proposed houses is pretty much going to be the same, slight variation, I believe. With regards to the disruption of the road, we're confident that the builder will adhere to the local bylaws and health and safety laws. As I know this was an issue raised on the portal by several people. As a guide for the proposed house, we looked at other houses in Hart Road that have been approved over the years, particularly number 43, and note that that was a bungalow before and was approved in 2014. Number 38 opposite, which is a very large house, and I don't think you've ever seen it on Google Maps, is a very, very small plot. So I think that the proposed house sits comfortably on the plot that at 47. The house is fairly conservative in design, would not jar or stand out from neighbouring properties in the rest of the road, and I do think it will be good for the area, the Hart Road itself and the Old Town, and you know, so improve the area. That's all really. I think Jade has covered pretty much everything else I was going to say. She jumped me to it, so thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, members, I jumped the gun earlier. Any questions? Councillor Souter.
Thank you, Chair. Number of letters sent was 27 and you had representations received for 17. Are they all in Hart Road? All in the neighbouring areas?
Jade?
So I think from memory about 7 were from Hart Road and then others were nearby in Old Harlow.
Right, thank you.
Any other questions, members? Debate then? Who wants to start? Clive Souter, Councillor Souter.
Thank you, Chair. I think this would be beneficial because being only a single skinned bungalow is not right, and the gentleman said that he wouldn't be able to sell it or get it remortgaged. I think this will be an asset to Hart Road.
I think I'd tend to agree with you. Councillor Holcoop.
Thank you, Chair. I totally agree, because if you look at the pictures we've just seen, there are quite a variety of different designs in Hart Road, be them more modern bungalows, but still bungalows, and next door on both sides, different house designs. So I think this will fit in, and it'll be a lot better than the bungalow that's there at the moment, which is a pretty bad eyesore. So I don't see any objections to this, to grant planning permission, Chair. Thank you.
Councillor Holcoop. Councillor Clark.
Yes, I agree. It's two stories, but in fact, it's only 1.7 metre higher, and now the reduction in the depth has helped. The impact has been most. There are other 2-storey dwellings in the vicinity. And the main issue seems to be lighting, which has been improved by the reduction in the depths and seems to pass all these rather complex tests that are there. And there's an extra bit of parking.
Indeed. Okay. Anybody else? No. In that case, members will move to the vote. So recommendations on pages 50 and 51, which is 1 to 6, plus informative 1, and recommendations 7 on your supplementaries. All those in favour.
And also the hours of work, Chair. Sorry.
Did you want to propose that then?
I want to propose that the hours of work should be reduced.
Should be implemented as the standard ones that we normally do, yeah?
Standard. Recommend.
Yeah. Is that
Sorry, Chair, just through you, that shouldn't be a problem. We could also add a construction method statement to comfort members.
Yeah. Okay. They seconded, members? Yeah. All those in favour of all of those, include those 2 new, please indicate. That is unanimous. Thank you, members. So that is agreed. Anybody that came specifically for that item, you're welcome to stay for the rest of the meeting. You're also welcome to leave should you wish to do so. Can we get Councillor Living back into the meeting? Can I do that? Let's try that.
Let's join in now.
Yeah, lovely.
Whoops. Oh,
Right, you're back.
Back.
Back, woken me from my sleep.
It's quicker than walking in and out of the chamber, though, isn't it? So,
Yes.
okay. Next item on the agenda is the Pink Cottage. Gavin, I believe you're presenting this one.
Thank you, Chair. Application, I'll share my screen. Okay, find the correct presentation. There we go. Right, application at Pink Cottage, Common Side, Harlow. Proposal is for change of use of to a supermarket and a takeaway. So the application site here is labelled the pink, and I'll show you in a bit more detail. In terms of the aerial photo, you will note how far away it is. It's set in this park. There's not much residential around. So showing the relationship, this is the actual, this building here is the actual listed building with an older extension, and then it's been extended with this area to the side. I'll show that in more context, in more detail. Members should also note here's Morns Hatch, and there's a co-op very close to the site. So the relationship of this to here is only 150 metres. So coming to the existing ground floor, as I said, it's an existing restaurant. So the restaurant seating area with toilets and storage and preparation area to the rear. Just showing this area, it's unhatched, which doesn't form part of the application, is an existing house in multiple occupation, and that is essentially the listed part of the building. So the proposal involves creation of a separate takeaway unit here with counter and associated cold room, which is very similar to how it was the restaurant cold room that was there previously. And then you have this area here, which is the shop with associated storage, and all the refuse will be to the rear of the property. So this probably explains it a bit more. Car parking at the front, listed building, the extension, the older extension where there's no changes, where it's the existing cold room for the restaurant. So there's a route through this area. This is flat roof, and this is the modern extension to the building. So in terms of the proposal, there will be no change to the elevations. Shows the Pink Cottage as it was. As I mentioned, this is the listed building part with the modern extensions. This has now been painted. The signs will be replaced in due course. So this shows the Pink Cottage. So they're re-rendering it, and there's works going on to the building in terms of its house in multiple occupation, and that is subject to a separate consent process. The extension has been painted, and this is the entrance to the takeaway, and then this building here is the shop, and there's a door behind here. It shows the rear. This is that rear extension I showed you. This is where the cold store would be within this building, and then between the two, this is the existing extract for the restaurant, which has been reused for the new takeaway. This is the rear of the listed building, and this is where the house in multiple occupation currently is. This shows the internal layout of the shop. So coming to essentially the main issues. Main issues are the impact on listed building, and I'll touch on the impact on the vitality and viability of the town centre, because this is outer centre. So in terms of the listed building, this is a change of use, and as I showed in terms of the plans, the area to the rear of the listed building is unchanged. There is no change in terms of the extract. Extract will still remain where it is, with the takeaway here. There will be a positive benefit to this building because it will have the investment from the use as a shop and as a takeaway, and obviously you've got the house for occupation, which is outside the scope of the application. So in terms of the proposal, it would not harm the character and appearance of the listed building or result in any harm to that building. In terms of the second issue, which is the impact on the vitality and viability, As I indicated, this site is outside of town centres. So essentially new shops should go in town centres, neighbourhood centres or within the hatches. But in this case, it is outside of the town centre, but only by 150 metres and is only 198 square metres. So it's only a limited scale. So it's considered that this is an acceptable location and would not lead to any harm to the vitality and viability of town centres. So overall, the recommendation is to grant. Thank you, members.
Thank you. Okay, we have one speaker, which is Mr. Oscan, who is the applicant. Mr. Oscan, you'll have 3 minutes.
Thank you. Well, hope everyone's fine and good. What I want to say is basically, I'm the new owner of the Pink Cottage, and I would like to use the listed property in line with planning and all other regulations to ensure the site's benefits the local community. We are keen to start over and overcome its bad history. As you all are aware, the Pink Spite has a really bad history during the COVID especially, and everyone's complaining constantly. We would like to bring back the vacant listed property and make good use of it. The existing commercial unit already benefits from a takeaway element, and we are adding a retail shop within, which we hope that it would address a need in the local area for the community. We worked with officers prior to the free out the application to ensure the proposal is in compliance with all the national and local policies. The officer's report in front of you is an evidence to that, as the proposal is recommended approval. Also, the property is set back from the road and has a large car park space to the front, and therefore it is quite scheduled and it would not harm the residential amenity. In addition, the opening hours, which is also conditional, the vehicle condition free by the officers, are limited to further ensure the nearby residential amenity is protected. The highway officer have assessed the application and are satisfied that there would be no concerns regarding to local road network. There are no external changes and minimal internal changes to the listed property. The proposal ensures that this listed building is in the use of the heritage assessed is protected. The site is large enough to provide refuse, long and short recycle areas, car park facilities, which are all in compliance with the council's policies. We are currently looking into the residential element of the property and hope to submit a planning and listed building application soon, but this application only relates to the commercial element on the ground floor. We believe that the area and local community would benefit from these uses, as we are looking forward to serve and working within the community. I'm here to answer any questions, committee. If any questions, please do not hesitate to ask me. Thank you, Chair.
Charles Cam. Okay, members, any questions? No. I've just thought of something which does concern me. Which is access to the building for deliveries. So I do think we're going to need to condition a service and delivery plan, Gavin, if we can add that to the list of conditions. Obviously, if I propose that, would somebody like to second that? Yeah.
I'll second it.
Thank you. Because I think, yeah, clearly large vehicles accessing the site might be an issue because it's not designed for it as it currently stands, but we'll add that as a condition to be dealt with later. Any other questions, members? No debate? Anybody want to talk? Nancy, it's over the road from you. You got a view?
I know that it's helpful view, to be honest, but I think I have been watching you from my window, and yeah, I think the obviously work's already happened to the building, and it's an improvement. So yeah, fully support it. And I'll see you in the shop.
Thank you.
Councillor Garnett? You're on mute, Councillor Garnett.
I'm a bit slow at the moment. It was the only we talked about the HMO, or not HMO, but the big sign on the front said accommodation to let, or rooms to let. Is that part of this application as well? It's not, is it?
No, it's not.
No.
It's subject to a separate application.
So an HMO will go through licensing.
Yeah.
If there's an HMO to go through. Anybody got anything else?
Okay.
No?
Nope.
In that case, we'll move to the vote. So pages 62 and 63, recommendations 1 to 4, informatives 1 to 3, plus recommendation 5 in the supplementary, and the separate recommendation with regard to a servicing and delivery plan. All those in favour? That is unanimously carried. So let me open up my iPad again. I should know the end of this agenda by now. I've done it enough times. We have no references from any other committees, no matters of business.
Yes, sorry. It is the end of the municipal year, so could I place on record my thanks to you for chairing this meeting so well this municipal year, please.
Thank you, Councillor Danvers.
Yes.
Great.
Thank you very much. It's much appreciated. And we have no matters of urgent business. I'd therefore like to close tonight's meeting at 8:31, and I'll see you all